Northern Iraq, 2003. U.S. Special Forces A-teams spearhead Peshmerga units to occupy the western end of a ridge running along the strategically critical Green Line. They aim to pin down Saddam's northern forces, while the main coalition assault in the south races toward Baghdad. More forces will then outflank the Green Line, move east, and strike toward Kirkuk. A small number of camera crews are with the Peshmerga force. April 6th, A-teams go ahead. The Peshmerga follow, ready to attack. The 3rd Battalion was originally assigned to the Western Desert to hunt Scud missiles. It has new and lethal ground mobility vehicles, GMVs. It has trained on the new Javelin anti-tank missile. It also has its own special supply vehicles, War Pigs, so the A-teams will not have to leave their positions to be resupplied. Each A-team can also call in air support. From F-14s and F-A-18s operating off carriers in the eastern Mediterranean, and giant B-52s from RAF Fairford in Britain. This is crucial in what is about to happen. 1700 hours, the A-teams call in B-52 airstrikes to begin the demolition of the Iraqi defenses. 0401 hours the next morning, 2 more B-52s bomb the ridge. 0600, ODAs 391 and 392 link up with their column of 80 Peshmerga fighters. Liaison Special Forces from ODA 044 are also present. They move south toward a crossroad protected by a minefield. Peshmerga forces try to breach an earthen berm ahead of the Iraqi line. The ODAs give supporting fire. The ODAs receive intelligence that an Iraqi armored battalion with tanks and personnel carriers has moved back from the crossroad. At the crossroad, they find an abandoned T-55 tank. This tank will prove crucial in what happens later. The American ODAs breach the berm and move south again toward a highway along the ridge line. The Peshmerga assemble at the crossroad by the abandoned tank. These stills were taken at the crossroads. Special high-level clearance has been necessary to use them for this program. 0940. The 2 A-teams and their GMVs are exposed. They pull back to a small ridgeline as Iraqi tanks and armored personnel carriers emerge from a morning mist. From the ridge, nicknamed the Alamo, the A-teams call in an airstrike and fire on the advancing tanks and troop carriers with Javelin anti-tank missiles. The enemy halts. At the crossroad, ODA 44 is also engaged with the enemy, using Javelin anti-tank missiles. Shortly before 1000 hours, 2 Navy F-14 Tomcats launch laser-guided bombs intended for the Iraqi tanks. But tragically, the first Tomcat targets the abandoned tank at the crossroad and the Peshmerga column gathered around it. It is devastating. The ODAs on the ridge face a harsh decision. They are locked in a gun battle with Iraqi tanks, but their Peshmerga allies are lying dead and wounded.
The accidental bombing of the Peshmerga at the crossroads could have been a disaster for the battle, because the Special Forces might have thought, okay, we need to pull back and take care of our own.
Instead, the Special Forces teams divide up. Some race back to tend the wounded. The rest continue to take on the Iraqi tanks and infantry.
This was a critical point in the battle. Had the Special Forces turned their backs, They could very well have found that the Iraqis charged at them. These aggressive, these ferocious forces could well have taken the initiative. As it was, they stood their ground, and it was a turning point in the battle.
The Peshmerga column and the press vehicles are burning. Fuel and ordnance are exploding. 17 Peshmerga and a BBC cameraman are killed. 45 men are wounded, including 2 Special Forces soldiers. Troops from ODA 391 tend the wounded. In front of them, the battle continues. The Iraqi T-55s are still in position, close to the crossroads, but behind cover. The rest of the ODAs take out Iraqi tanks and vehicles. They recall the Tomcats back into action and direct them onto the proper target. F-A-18 Hornets pick up the attack. 10:40 hours. Most of the wounded have been evacuated. The A-teams are almost out of Javelin missiles. Fortunately, the war pigs arrive with resupplies, just as the Iraqis start to close in. By 1600 hours, the battle is won. To the west, after a similar fierce engagement against Iraqi armor and artillery, other ODAs break the Iraqi forces on the flank. The way south is now open.